Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daniel Leese Podcast. If this is your first episode, then you're in for an absolute belter because I've got somebody who's got a life that not many can say they've had. And he's also done some crazy things in business as well. I'm going to cover all that. So you've come on to a good episode. But if you're a repeat listener, thanks for coming back. Just off the back of a summer break from not recording too much. And this is the first episode back. And I'm super buzzing to have a good friend of mine come on the show. I've been talking to him for years about doing it, but finally he's plucked up the courage and grown a set of balls to come and talk in front of you guys. So I can't wait to introduce this week's guest. So you know the drill. If you're a repeat listener but haven't subscribed, the only way that we can keep growing this show is if you subscribe. So if you could please do that, I'd be forever grateful. So this week's guest. He's got a video clip on YouTube that has gone viral with over 3 million views of him getting shot in the arse when he was serving with the Royal Marines in Afghanistan. He is the, let's say he's like the definition of energy. Like he is constantly on the go, constantly thrill seeking. And a part of that life was why he served in the Royal Marines for a long time. But then when he left, he transitioned that energy into becoming a very successful businessman and has gone on to now have a number of businesses, including a successful fitness business back in the UK, as well as having a multi-million-dollar logistics business here. This story today is one of resilience, is one of danger, is one of excitement and how to grow businesses. What you actually go through on a day-to-day life of a businessman and what can happen. It's not just all good things. Sometimes shit happens, and there's a few things that have happened recently which we're going to talk a lot about today. So welcome to the Daniel Leese Podcast. Please join me in welcoming this week's guest, Jonny Hart.
Thank you very much, Danny. It's been a pleasure.
Mr. Thrill Seeker.
Yeah, definitely. I do like the more dangerous things in life.
So tell me about this morning. What were you up to?
So this morning,
Yeah.
in terms of...
You said you was going...
Oh, so I didn't actually go bugging this morning. I've
okay.
postponed it till tomorrow, simply because I'll come in a little bit battered and bruised if I went it this morning.
Okay.
So yeah, I do a lot of the desert rallying, rally raid competitions, trying to get up to the FIA level, and then trying to potentially do Dakar rally probably next 12 to 24 months. So a lot of learning, a lot of training, a lot of... time behind the wheel to be able to get to that sort of level, to be able to compete at that standard.
What do you think you have within you? Because I've known you for some time, but like even when I would go to your house, you'd always have like these super quick electric bikes and fast cars and this and that and the other. So what is it about you that needs to have that kind of adrenaline junkie kind of in your life?
It's strange to really, I mean, the adrenaline side of it, definitely. I like the extreme sports. I like to push myself. I like to see what I can get out of myself. But I just found that driving, rallying, desert is a perfect location for that, especially being in Dubai. You have the desert in your back garden. You have access to a lot of really high, powerful vehicles, cars and stuff like that. The more successful gone over the years, been able to afford bigger and better sort of toys to play with.
Yeah.
So I've always been into it since from a young age. Started on the motorbikes, quad bikes, and just worked my way up from there. I finally sort of found sport that, I've got a real passion for now. So I'm really sort of sticking at that and trying to see where we can go with it. But again, really enjoy it. It complements the business that we're involved in terms of the logistics side. We do a lot of rally logistics, a lot of vehicle shipments and stuff like that. So, it fits very well with the sort of lifestyle I'm living.
It's almost like a networking as well as a
definitely.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning. So I obviously mentioned in the introduction that there's a viral clip of you getting shot. But let's go back to the younger age and tell us a bit about kind of like you as a kid and what actually led you to getting into the Royal Marines.
So born in Wigan, that's the hometown. Spent most of my childhood there. Very good childhood. Single mother. Parent, had a lot of support from grandparents as well. Mother went on to remarry, had 2 stepbrothers, so it was a tight-knit family in terms of me and the brothers. Always stuck together, always liked to, look after each other and stuff like that. As we were getting older, went to high school, didn't really sort of fit in well, it wasn't really my sort of, didn't have a great deal of interest in it, did what I needed to do to get sort of the exams, and then I came across a careers show for the Royal Marines, and it piqued my interest. I was like, what's this So I learned more about it, seen some of the jobs they were doing, some of the operations they're working on, some of the work involved. And it really sort of resonated with that level of sort of energy that I had in terms of, I was really good at fitness, running, football, stuff like that. And I could see that I could develop these skills further. But also on the extreme side of it, some of the jobs that they were doing in terms of their operational deployments and stuff like that, it really looked interesting. So I just went down to the careers office, 16 years old, and walked in there and said, what's the hardest sort of job I can join within the armed forces? And this 6.5 foot burly Marine said, come here and watch this video, promotional video. After that video, I was hooked, and then I said, sign up. So that was really
So you only had to be 16 years old to sign in?
16 and a half, yeah. So literally from 16 years old.
Wow.
To be able to go on to sort of basic training, we do a potential Royal Marines course, which is like a 3-day like beasting down at the Commando Training Centre.
What was that like?
Horrific. I mean, it's still a child to go down to that. I had to get my mother's signature to allow me to go on to enter that.
What sort of things did you do? Because now you've got that glorified kind of program like SAS Who Dares Wins and stuff like that. So it gives you kind of glimmer of like what it's like. But break it down to like, did you enter that just like being excited?
There was excitement. There was the anticipation. There was the nervousness because I didn't really know what I was getting myself involved in.
And you're still a boy, really, aren't you?
Yeah. A lot of people said, "Are you crazy? You'll never get in the Marines. Have you seen what they're doing?" And that sort of pushed me further. The negative sort of feeling from a lot of people said, "Well, why can't I give this a try? I'm as good as anybody else. Let's sign up and give it a go." So I went down to do the potential Royal Marines course. Quite an eye-opener, to be honest. Probably about 40, 50 fully grown adults, ranging from 17, 18 upwards up to 25, 26, 27. Big guys, little guys, all sorts of different backgrounds. And literally for 3 days, you are brutalised. No sleep, just run ragged.
So you don't sleep for 3 days?
Very little, very little. And it's really just to try and break you on that 3-day period to try and whittle out, see who's actually serious about this and who wants to actually join the Royal Marines and begin the training.
So do you remember what type of things you had to do?
Just mud runs, fireman's carries, just carrying weights, logs, literally just getting pushed to your limits on that. To see, they're just pushing you to see who would quit. And when you're looking around and you're seeing these adults, these big burly guys saying, "I want to go home, I want my mum," and stuff like that, literally near enough crying, saying they wanted to quit. I just kept my head down, just kept quiet, and just did what I needed to do, kept pushing myself mentally and saying, "I'm going to get to the end of this."
What were you thinking during, like, what was the thing that stopped you from quitting? Because I'm sure it probably would have entered your mind.
I think failure. I just don't like to fail at anything. I want to succeed at everything I sort of get involved in. And the fact that a lot of people said you'd never be able to do it was always at the back of my mind to say, "I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove you wrong." I don't know why I wanted to do that, but I wanted to prove that I could do this, so I was good enough to at least get past this point.
So as you said, there's like 40 to 50 men, and they're all like big, like fully grown men, and some of them were quitting. So what I'm interested to understand is how did you manage to kind of like build that mindset? Was that literally the first kind of adversity you had, or did you have a lead in to that where it was like you were just generally the hardest kid at school and just didn't take any nonsense?
Not the opposite, really. Just quiet, getting into trouble, stuff like that. Try to be the class sort of clown, joking around, messing around. Did the work what was needed to be done in school, but really didn't have a great interest in pursuing education any further.
So it wasn't like you was into fitness or you was...
I was a good runner. Really, really good sort of cross-country, long-distance runner. I think that was the ace card that I had, was the ability to run for such long distances.
You're so fit, yeah.
And that's just generally through growing up back home, being, out playing football, getting up to mischief.
Running away from people.
We've all been there. And, you just leaned on them strengths to try and use that to my advantage. And the big part of the Marines is the physicality. So as long as you can run, you've got good endurance, that's instilled into you. You can learn pretty much every other skill they're going to train you, because you've got such a long training phase that they will train you up. I mean, the main key sort of strengths you need is your physicality.
Yeah. So I assume you passed that test.
Yep.
What was the next steps of being a part of the Royal Marines?
So after the potential Royal Marines course, you then go back. You get notified on the final day of that whether you pass or fail. And I think something like 12, 13 of us passed. And we was then given a date to come back to begin the Royal Marines Commando training phase, which was at the time 28 weeks. That has now been increased to 32. And that's essentially does your military basic training for the first 8 weeks, and then the remainder of that is your commando phase training.
And what was it like in terms of because I've interviewed a few people that have been a part of the Royal Marines, and they say about how good it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that obviously are not that thick-skinned that might maybe look at it and go like, oh, it's the type of way you're treated and stuff. But the people that are actually in it talk about how much brotherhood is actually there.
Yeah, it's a massive part. I mean, even now, how many years since I left, I'm still in touch with guys who we served with, who was in training with on even off a daily basis. The brotherhood is so strong. And I think a lot of guys who've grown up from, some form of hardship back home, where it's broken families, tough upbringing, they seem to excel in these areas, especially in the military or the armed forces, or particularly in the Royal Marines. A lot of tough guys from childhood, having to deal with problems they face, having the resilience, having that mental strength to not quit, to continue until the job's done kind of mentality, which is really, really strong. I mean, even now, there's certain times where I think, if I can do that then, I can do this now. And it gives you that confidence to know no matter what's thrown at you in life, you can deal with it, you can get on with it, and you can accomplish it.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good that they have that ability to train you, essentially, mould you into this commando at the end of training to then go on to do your operational tours, whatever you need to do within that role, but also after your military career out into the commercial business world.
So when it comes to you did the training, how long were you actually in the Marines for in total?
So I did 6.5 years.
6.5 years. So you came up and you were like
2008.
Oh wow, okay. And in that time, how many tours did you do?
2 operational tours. Did Operation Herrick 5 and Operation Telic 2. So I did a tour in Iraq and a tour in Afghanistan.
And was that when it was all kicking off?
It's debatable for different sort of units and stuff like that. But I feel that Operation Herrick 5 was sort of the tail end of the actual hand-to-hand ground combat before the dynamics of the battle space changed, where they started to implement improvised explosive devices and not actually getting in face-to-face combat with the enemy, and it changed the dynamic of the battlefield that way. So from my perspective, I was very fortunate because everything we'd done in training, we were able to go and implement that on the battlefield and in Afghanistan. And the main aim really was to fight the war on global terrorism, which we obviously did quite well.
Yeah. So when you actually when they were, because obviously now it's almost like, I wouldn't say you wouldn't need it, but you don't need that much physical men because you've got missiles and bombs and these types of things, right? So you kind of fight from a distance.
Yeah.
But was it the same? I suppose it wasn't the same then, because that was like 20 odd years ago. It's like a long time ago.
It was different then because we had to. So we was part of the operational mentor liaison team. So we was taking the Afghan soldiers out to train them up to be able to then take over the lead to then support the communities and the provinces that they was there to protect. But because the combat was so fierce, the Afghan sort of soldiers would just literally down tools and run off, and we was left to get stuck into the firefight. To win the enemy, to try and then get them confident enough to come back in to do that. So it was a tough job to do because we're trying to train these guys up to a standard that they can be self-sufficient, but they needed more time to train them to get the basic skills in place.
What was Iraq like?
Iraq was pretty good job, to be honest. We was part of a fleet standby rifle troop team, so we was on ship. We'd get the call to jump onto the helicopter and find one of the boats that was smuggling either weapons, oil, and interdict them. We'd fast rope down, secure the boats, secure the team on board, and then the Navy would come on and clear the vessel.
What was that like when you found it?
So
when you get tasked and you actually find one, like what's the feeling like?
So as an 18-year-old doing that, it was like a dream job. You was literally doing, you get called out in 2-3 in the morning. You'd have all your equipment on, your frizz suits, your weapons, your webbing, your cutting equipment. You'd jump on the helicopter, you'd take off in pitch black. You'd have your night vision goggles on, and you'd lock onto the vessel, and then chuck the rope out the side, and then fast rope down onto the vessel while it was still moving. So it was really, really top level stuff that we was doing as part of a 6-7 man team. And as an 18-year-old, it was quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, because that must have almost affected your confidence in a sense where you must have been like, I am the dog's bollocks here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, you're very proud to be doing that sort of role. A lot of responsibility. A lot of the older guys, probably didn't want the younger guys on the team, but as long as you passed all the training packages and you was put forward, your name was put forward for the team, then you're as good as anybody else to do that job.
Yeah. So when you're taking over these vessels and you're on a helicopter, right? I'm imagining this like in my mind, like you're on a helicopter, you scoot down on the rope and then you attach to the vessel, and then you get onto the vessel as it's moving, right?
Yeah.
And how big are these vessels?
They vary, anything from say a small wooden dhow up to a big sort of tanker, a big massive super tanker.
And do you ever face? I mean, I can't imagine they're just going to lie down and go, yeah, no worries, take all of our weapons and oil and stuff.
I think it was more a show of force. As soon as they see the helicopter coming up, they know where it is. They know it's going to be British, European military forces, and they know straight away they're either going to ditch their weapons overboard and going to manoeuvre themselves to the front of the vessel. We had a few non-compliant boardings, which they would literally try and make a run for it. They didn't get very far. But again, same sort of tactic, throw any weapons overboard and act like they was just part of the crew. So, we didn't really face a great deal of hostility. Had a few sort of problematic people on board.
Give us an example.
Swiftly dealt with.
Come on, give us an example of one.
Just being uncompliant. So we'd have to plastic cuff them, put them down on the floor, and then carry them out into the front of the vessel. So just to secure the team, make sure they're safe, make sure colleagues and the other Marines are safe on board, and the vessel was brought to a stop.
And then how long did you serve in Iraq in the end?
So we did 7 months in Iraq.
What was that like being there for 7?
Because we was on ship for probably six months of that.
On the ship for the 6 months. And what was, because I've heard we obviously live in the UAE, right? So it's hot here, but I've heard in Iraq in the summer it's like disgustingly hot.
It was not too bad. I mean, we did get a lot of downtime, so it's training, either weapons training, phys training, keeping your fitness up, and generally just working on intel, what's happening in the area, keeping up to date and keep briefed by the Navy. And stuff like that. So all really good stuff. And again, fresh out of training, all them skills are fresh in your mind and ready to sort of put into action.
Because you think with all the intelligence that they have nowadays, it's like you wonder how people even get away with anything, because they seem to know everything really. It's almost like they know it's happening before it even happens. So, but when it comes to leaving a place like that, you go back to a camp or you off to your next mission? Like, how does it all work?
We come back to Fujairah, and then we fly back. So we come in.
So you was coming to the UAE as well then, yeah. Is there a British camp here?
No, it was just the port at the time.
Okay.
So it was only a small team to do that. And again, we got ripped out. A replacement team come and take over us after 6 months.
Yeah. And then how long between that point was it from that until Iraq?
So after Iraq, I then did my assault engineers course, which trains you up to do all the demolitions, the engineering skills that's needed as part of the course. Really, really tough course, to be honest, to sort of handle and manage the demolitions in terms of blowing structures up, blowing mouse hull charges into buildings and stuff like that, but really, really useful skills that would come on to Afghanistan, which we would be utilised almost daily.
Yeah. And what did you get deployed for in Afghanistan? What was happening at the time?
So for Afghanistan, we was deployed to there's a place called Helmand Province. and a province, a smaller sort of town called Gamsia, which essentially was it was a town that had been pushed out all the civilians, and the Taliban had taken over it because it was a fortified position. A lot of the old fort positions were there from, I'm presuming, back hundreds of years when they used to have the battles. So quite a heavily defenced position, and the Taliban was using that as sort of a stop-off point coming up from Pakistan to stop off there and then basically harass what was happening in the local area.
Yeah.
So for us, it was a perfect sort of ground that we was tasked to go to train up the Afghan soldiers, to then get them battle ready, get them familiar with how contacts work and the training that they needed to do. And after sort of several weeks, it soon became into sort of a hornet's nest. It was really, really intense battling, day-to-day battling.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously everyone hears on the news about the Taliban and stuff like that, but like, what sort of stuff do they actually do to which would obviously be quite horrifying to hear? Like, what sort of stuff did you hear them doing?
I mean, just from personal experiences there, they would take over towns and sort of villages and extract, extort them for money, for animals, for meat, just causing problems, and then put them under their own rule. We had a lot of problems with them in terms of the abuse on the children. They would abuse young boys in some of the areas.
Like sexually?
Yeah, really, really bad. But it's, even their own police force was doing that. It was quite horrific, some of the stories that we would hear, and actually some of the incidents that we
got called
across.
into. Yeah. What was what would you say was the kind of like worst moment where you got pulled into something and you were like, wow, this is really like messing with the brain?
There's several, really. I mean, the only sort of the incidents that I can relate to are obviously the one where we was ambushed and I was shot, but that really didn't affect me too mentally. There was obviously physical issues with that in terms of the injury, the rehabilitation after that, but it didn't really bother me in terms of, I was lucky. That was it. The bullet went in and out of one side, and I was fine. The sort of issues that did stick with me for a long time after that was when our vehicle was hit with an RPG in the side, and one of my friends was on the top cover on the machine gun. The vehicle didn't have a great deal of ballistic matting on one side. The rocket went through the side and exploded all into his legs. So we thought that he'd been blown out of it, but we was the point vehicle. So if we'd have stopped dead, we was the point vehicle in the ambush, so we'd have all probably been killed. So we had to drive through the ambush. We didn't know if he was still in the vehicle or not. As we got to the police checkpoint, we debussed, checked above, the vehicle's on fire, and he wasn't there. So we jumped round the back, and luckily he was still in the vehicle. He just fell down. We pulled him out, put the flames out on him. He was sort of smouldering from sort of the rocket's blast. And he didn't look too injured. And then we pulled him into the cover, and then when he tried to stand him up, but he couldn't because he was, dazed and confused. As he crouched down against the wall, all his legs just went red. So the fabric on his legs wasn't touching at first, but after all the blast and the shrapnel had gone in, that's when everything just went red, like a pink. And obviously we had to pull his trousers off, patch him up, stop all the bleeding. So he survived. I don't know how he survived, and he was a tall guy. But literally from here was where all the metal shrapnel went in, so lucky. So that for me is probably the most, traumatic story or memory that I have of that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the guys anyway all either come very close to their own personal incidents or own injuries with that. So a lot of guys will take away different stories that will probably still be affecting them now, or at least be on the memory for a long time.
What did you when you went through that traumatic circumstance? What was the trauma to you? Like, what was happening?
I think it was just not knowing if your friend, colleague, brother was on the back of that vehicle and you had to drive through. If we'd have stopped, we'd have been killed. So that
So it's almost
guilt,
like that guilt feeling like you're leaving him behind.
Yeah, We'd have gone back anyway. There's no two ways about it. If we'd have stopped that vehicle at the checkpoint and realised we were missing somebody, we'd have all gone back.
But even though you knew you would have died?
Probably, yeah. Because we wouldn't leave somebody behind. The only problem we had at that time was that obviously we was point vehicle. If we'd have stopped and debossed, we had 5 or 6 vehicles behind us, all in the position to be taken out. So it was pretty crazy.
And do you still speak to him to this day?
Yeah.
And is he able to walk and all
that?
that?
Fine. It's fine. He's got a lot of scarring. He was so lucky because on the vehicles you have something called ECM, electronic countermeasures. So they block out any bomb jamming equipment, any bomb signals trying to detonate an IED. For some reason, this vehicle had that ECM on the left side of the vehicle. Now, normally it's always behind the headrests of the vehicle. Somebody put it on that side, and that took the full impact to the rocket. So that's what saved his life.
Wow.
And it was the only vehicle out of the whole convoy that had that ECM mounted on that left side. So whether it's fate, God, or what, somebody was looking over him that day. The lot of us.
So let's go to that moment then, because I mean I've obviously known you for God knows how long, and it was only on Tuesday that I found out that you'd been shot, and you were like, yeah, I did tell you that, right? And I was like, no. So let's go back to that moment then. So what was actually happening on that day, and what was actually going on?
So we go out routine patrols morning and afternoon just to make sure the villages are secure, there's nobody harassing them, causing any problems. We're looking for local intel on the ground, taking up sort of high positions on the hills and the mountains, just keeping overwatch. Normal routine patrol down the side of a riverbed. You get like a funny feeling sometimes, like a combat indicator. You start noticing that villagers are not out in the fields. Children are not playing in the fields. And this is like normal daytime or morning, where usually they will be out there going about the day. There'll be motorbikes driving up and down. Nothing this day. So straight away, the sort of hairs on your neck stand up. You know something's not right. But we've still got a task to do. We've got a job to do. Continue down the ridge line, down the side of the canal. Within sort of a few seconds like that, you know something's going to happen. It's a weird sense. It's like a sixth sense. You know something's going to happen. So do
you feel like a lot of anxiety?
It's not that. It's not anxiety. It's a different sensation. It's very sort of hard to describe because you don't really experience that in life. You don't experience like something bad is going to happen that you need to react very quickly to. So you're hyper sort of poised.
Sensitive,
yeah. So you're sort of slouching down in your vehicle to keep your profile as low as possible. You know it's coming, but you don't know where it's coming from. And then all of a sudden, the usual tactic is to fire an RPG across the front vehicle, take the front vehicle out, take the rear vehicle out, and then ambush the whole vehicles in between, because the front vehicle's stuck, rear vehicle's stuck, they can't get out. Luckily, the RPG had gone straight over the bonnet. So we positioned the vehicle, we saw the flash from that, and then all hell broke loose. So there must have been about, they estimate between 30 and 50 Taliban in the reeds on the other side. They'd been waiting for us all day because although we don't set patterns, they knew we would be doing a daily patrol at some point during that day. The likelihood was that it could be down this channel or down one of the others. So they'd had, doing their own intelligence, seeing us coming out of the base, doing the patrol. Front vehicle started to take small arms fire, so we could hear it on the camera. I had the helmet camera on at the same time, so you could hear the vehicle going tink, tink. So straight away you're taking incoming. The rear vehicle, everyone was sort of, there was dust everywhere from the gunfire. There was splashing everywhere. Shortly after that, debusters sort of spread out to try and find the target enemy position. We spotted them, giving some clear target indications where they were. Return fire. I'm sure you've seen on the video. Pretty intense. They was running between positions and really quite. They're not fools. They're quite trained in sort of guerrilla warfare. They can hide between the different trenches or between the grass. And they was proving quite effective in terms of what they was doing. They shot a couple of other Afghan soldiers with us, and a lot of the vehicles took sort of small arms fire, RPG, shrapnel. I then had a stoppage of my weapon, went down on the ground, changed my magazine, cleared the stoppage, back in the firefight, and then as I were turning to get back in the vehicle, just on the camera you can see splashing, so they must have had it on automatic fire, and then the fourth or fifth round went straight through the leg, through one side out to the other, which was, you know, it was a weird sensation. It felt like something had whipped me, like a burning sensation. So, but straight away I knew what it was.
Because watching the video, and we'll play this in the clip, but it's so funny. Your reaction's like fuck. Like,
yeah.
So it felt like somebody had whipped you.
Yeah.
So it's not like you felt like you had to drop to your leg or anything like that. No.
No, I think because you didn't take out any muscle or cartilage or bone. It was simply just the fat of the bum cheek. It was a clean entry and a clean exit. Now, normally when a round hits the body, it's always a clean entry. And because of the vacuum and the hard tissue and muscle and bone, it's a massive exit wound at the back. It just blasts everything out. If that had happened, then it would have been dead. There's no two ways about it. So fortunately, it was clean entry, clean exit. It was bleeding. I jumped back in the vehicle. And afterwards, obviously after the hospital treatment, everything, the doctor said the best thing you did was put that pressure on your cheek in the vehicle.
So you had to stop firing and stuff after.
So I had to jump back in the vehicle and drive us behind one of these, like a small hilly outcrop. As I took the vehicle behind there, one of the guys on the vehicle, I said, "Can you see anything?" He went, "Yeah, you're bleeding." He said, "Jump down." So they then patched me up, put a first field dressing on it, wrapped it up as tight as possible. During this time, the firefight was going on for about 80 minutes.
80,
80, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was crazy.
And in that combat, is it constant, just bullets flying, or there's times where it kind of dies down and then starts again?
In the beginning, it was carnage. It was just, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of bullets going back and forward. You could hear they call it the Afghan bee. It's like the whiz of the bullet coming towards you. So you could hear that noise constantly. So they was proving quite effective in terms of the firing back at us. And considering they're probably using 40, 50, 60-year-old AK weapons with iron sights rather than ours with, you know, the high-tech equipment we've got, they were proving quite effective, to be honest. So we called in artillery support, called in the Apaches, air support, and then we had to then drive out the same route that we'd come in with to make sure it was clean. So we managed to get back. Luckily, everyone was still alive, from our side anyway, and yeah, jumped on the next Chinook back. I didn't want to go, but they said you've got to go back to Camp Bastion to go to the hospital and get stitched up.
And Camp Bastion was where like the holding was. Yeah,
that's like the main camp in Helmand. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to recover from that?
I was back on my feet. In 12 days, I was back on the ground. I had to get patched up and then go to the doctor, get the doctor to sign off it. And then I said, look, there's no point keeping me in this hospital bed. I won't stay here. And I'm not going to stay on camp. So either send me back to the UK or get me back out with the guys. And he said, so did a lot of physical tests, make sure they was happy with everything. The wound was cleared up. And luckily managed to get back out with the guys shortly after. And
how long did you end up staying in Afghanistan after that?
7 months again. Yeah.
Have you ever witnessed anyone being killed?
Yeah.
What was that like for you from a traumatic perspective?
I mean, luckily, still not great to see, but it was none of our Marines. Was coming back from another patrol, and as they have one of our vehicles, point vehicle. It will have the ECM equipment on it, the electronic countermeasures, and it puts like a safety bubble around, electronic bubble around the group of vehicles to make sure that if there is an improvised explosive device hidden in the ground or in a choke point or in a junction, whoever's pressing that button by radio control frequency, that frequency won't go through to detonate the IED. So our vehicle went through, and then a second vehicle which was within our bubble. The third vehicle was an Afghan vehicle that had no ECM, and that was what blew up. So being a point vehicle, looking in the mirror, seeing the ID go off, seeing a massive dust cloud. Again, can't see our second vehicle, thinking it's a Marine's vehicle. And then all of a sudden we just see this Marine's vehicle come charging through the dust cloud at 50 mile an hour. Obviously relieved that it's our vehicle, but obviously, unfortunately, the Afghans in the vehicle were finished.
Wow. And did you ever, because one thing I want to come on to in a second is obviously, what the military can do to people. But did you ever feel like it was taking control of your mindset?
No, really. The only stuff that I didn't think was right really was the support that was given to the guys at the time. Now this was all new at the time. All right, I'm presuming things have got a lot better now. They have a lot of rehabilitation. They have a lot of post-traumatic stress support and stuff like that. But at the time, it got to the point where we was getting called in. Anybody who'd been in a traumatic incident, and bearing in mind we'd had TBI, traumatic brain injury from the blasts. We'd been shot. There'd been lads blown up. There had lads with legs missing. Marines been shot in the back. The radio system had blown up in his back. A lot of injuries. A lot of lads dying. A lot of lads, really, really sort of mental trauma on them, and probably still plays with them today. The ones that are still alive. There was very little support for the guys after that. There was just there was a mentality of you're a Marine, stiff upper lip, get on with it. And I don't think people knew at that time the long-term effects that it would have on a lot of the guys.
Yeah.
For me, it never really affected me too much. It was like water for ducks back, But other guys, they've either fell onto drink problems after the Marines, become alcoholics and got on the drink, had problems with drugs, committed suicide.
Do you know people that served with you that have done that?
Yeah. Gone on to do crazy, committed crimes, really, really quite serious crimes after the Marines. And I think this boils down to the lack of support during stuff like that. Or maybe, that's sort of my take on it. But speaking to other Marines that sort of I'm friends with and stuff like that, they're in the same boat at the time. I would hope, I like to think now that things have got a lot better just for the whole military as a whole.
And what made you want to leave in the end?
It was really because of the specialisation that I was in, assault engineers. It was very difficult to get promoted. It was like one out, one in type of thing. So for me, I didn't really want to continue that. I wanted to get into business. And that's when I came on to setting up the first business. I'd started to put the wheels into motion in Afghanistan. We had a lot of downtime between sort of operations. And I had began sort of building a folder of the plan for the gym business.
Yeah.
So that's when it sort of first started to do that. And then once I returned back to camp, handed my notice in, said, thank you very much, this is great. I want to move on now and get into the business world.
Yeah. And that was when you started with its warehouse in Hindley?
The warehouse gym Hindley,
yeah. So how do you even come up with these concepts? Because you're in the army, you've not really got a business brain about you because you've never really been into that sort of thing. So what sparked the interest of starting a business?
I just spoke to guys who was in my town and said, look, when I come home on leave or when I come and visit a family, I'm like, where's the gyms? We've got this little gym in town. Why are you going all the way to Wigan, like driving 5 mile away to train there? And the same answer across everybody was, there's really, really small gyms, there's no equipment, and the nearest good gym really was a commercial one. I think it was JJB. Do you remember JJB? Yeah. JJB gym.
Elsom of Wigan lad, wasn't it? Yeah. What was his name? Dave
Wheeler.
Yeah.
And that sort of tweaked something in my head. I was like, right, there's a gap here. How do I find out, right, what's needed? So I spoke to people. Right, I need a gym, need a big warehouse, need something big to be able to fill it with all the latest equipment, all the newest machines, and make sure there's everything in there that's going to bring people for miles to come to this gym. And that was how it sort of started.
Yeah, and what was the first points like? Because setting up a business is extremely hard, and I think people now get sold the dream of get rich quick. But what were the motions that you put in place? Because you've got to find money to rent the space. Gym equipment's not cheap. Like, how did you go around actually developing that and getting a business plan together, and also the cash capital?
Yeah. So the business plan was the main thing. You had to study the demographics of the area. What's the population? Is it young? Is it old? Are they working? Are they students? Are they the older generation? So did a lot of research into that. Contacted the local council for as much data as we could get hold of. So I knew there was a need for when there was a population to support it. Wigan is the second largest borough in Greater Manchester, 300,000 people population. Hindley, the town, had 27,000 people. So I then worked off 1% of that, of the town. So if we can do that and cover the costs, then the marketing and everything else should be easier.
Yeah.
So that sort of is what the spark was. Yes, absolutely. The gym equipment is extremely expensive, but I had a little bit of a trick up my sleeve. Is that some of the big brands, the popular brands, like Hammer Strength and some of the other big expensive machines, I got an engineering company to come to the gym with me and reverse engineer them in machines. So instead of paying £3,000 to £5,000 a machine, I was paying £500 to £800 a machine.
And they would make them?
Yes, custom made.
Wow.
Exactly the same, near enough like for like, but without the branding on.
Wow.
I don't know where that puts me in a legal perspective, but that's how we did it. And then that allowed me to sort of go big on the equipment requirements.
Yeah, so you could really go to town on it. Yeah.
And then I was searching for the CV equipment. And a lot of the big gyms, the big chain gyms, after 3 years, they write the asset off and they put them into auctions. So trawled for all the auction places for the gym equipments, and then found one that was doing it, and then bought a load of second-hand CV equipment, got it refurbished. So again, paid 20% of the actual cost of a new machine, and just as good.
Yeah. And how much did you spend on that first gym?
I think it was about £120,000.
Yeah.
Which, when I look back at the pictures at the time, it's completely changed. I mean, we're probably 10 times bigger than that initial investment now in terms of equipment. Members, we've just hit 4,500 members, and we're coming up to our 10-year point in October this year.
Nice.
So it's been a lifesaver for me to get that business and have it so successful. It's really, really, and I'm quite proud of it as well, really, because it shows that just somebody with no higher education, basic school education, a little bit of know-how, a bit of research, have a passion for fitness, can set something up. Yes, we probably went quite big on the budget to begin with, but if you wanted to tighten it back a bit, you could probably do it with half the price of that.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that I seen was trends were changing. So a lot of people were getting into fitness, and even more so now in terms of longevity. People weren't going out drinking as much. People, were shifting the sort of mindsets were shifting in from going out boozing all weekend to getting into a fitter, healthier lifestyle. And I knew that the trends were going to change, and the fitness industry was going to get really sort of bit busy and popular. And then this is where we are now.
So tell us about some of the struggles you've had with having a gym now, especially in an area like Hindley.
So, we have a lot of there's a lot of smaller gyms, say spit and sawdust gyms, back alley gyms that are usually sort of owned by certain parts of criminality.
Yeah.
So we'd put a few noses out of joint by opening up this big facility. We'd had a lot of problems in the first year. We'd had criminal damage, we'd had threats and stuff like that. It's just part and parcel of living in these northern working class towns, is that people don't like seeing other people do well, especially when you're competing against them and taking their business livelihood. So had a few problems within the first sort of 12 to 24 months, but thankfully things sort of settled down, and they soon realised we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. What was the kind of worst situation from that arose?
We'd had arson attacks. We'd had a van ram-raided through the front of the gym and tried to set on fire. They even went to the extent of taking a ladder, climbing on top of the warehouse, smashing through the ceiling, pouring fluid in and trying to light it that way. So pretty full on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did any people ever get arrested for that?
We knew it was, but like I said, police can only do so much.
Yeah.
And then you sort of have to call a few favours yourself.
Yeah. And then, and in between all this period, when did Dubai become a place for you as a place to live?
So in the Marines, I used to, one of my very good friends at the time left before me. We served together in Afghanistan, and he was kind of my mentor. So I learnt so much from him as an older sort of friend. He was a sergeant in the Marines, so me as a sort of just a Marine was trying to absorb all this knowledge, information, experience because he was a very bright guy. Always told me about obviously his business aspirations and stuff like that, and he moved out to Dubai. And then...
Is he still here?
Yeah, I think so. He's between here and US. And he's gone on to be a very successful big business guy. And I got a phone call one day, and it was like, "Who's this number?" It was an international number, so I answered it, and it was this person. He said, "I've got a position. Are you interested in coming working for my company?" I said, "What time's the flight?" "I'm ready."
Yeah.
Jumped on a flight. Well, I met him in London. Jumped on a flight. Had £125 in my pocket. That's all, and just the promise of a job and a roof over my head. So we then went on to work for his company for 6 years.
And what were they doing?
So they supplied satellite tracking equipment for private security companies, oil and gas, diplomatic missions throughout conflict and hostile affected regions throughout the Middle East and Africa. So really, really successful business and a really, really interesting business. Again, never really had a great deal of exposure to that sort of equipment. You had to quickly become a subject matter expert in it. So a lot of studying. Again, never thought I'd be having my head in the books studying, but again, had to learn about this equipment. And that's how I really got into sort of selling, was that, how can we sell these products and services into these companies operating in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Somalia? Really, really complex places to operate, difficult to get there. But the good thing was there wasn't a really great deal of competition. There was one big player who had the monopoly, and we come in as new kids on the block and literally wiped them out in 2 to 3 years. We took the market share, so it was really, really good fun. That's how I got into the sort of sales side of things. And then after 6 years, we parted company. And then I was like, right, where do we go now from here? Took a few months off, had a bit of rest. And then I said, I actually know a lot of companies who are having problems in these places. They need medical equipment. And I was like, who do I know who can get medical equipment for Iraq? And during my time visiting these places, I met two young doctors who were Kurdish. So Kurdistan is autonomous. It's northern Iraq, but it's autonomous region. It's still part of Iraq. So they was licensed to be able to import and supply. So we set up a joint venture, and I said, look, I will buy from you as a distributor, and I will resell these into oil and gas companies, private security companies, defence contractors, anybody who needed these equipment on the ground, because locally they couldn't buy international standards medical equipment and pharmaceuticals to be able to, because again, at hostile places.
How did you find these contacts though? Because I can't believe that they were all just in a black book, right? No. You had to find them.
I will literally talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So in the airports, I met him in Kurdistan in a hotel, just a young guy, and I just got chatting to him. He said, I'm a doctor. And we swapped details. And 3 years later, I called him up again and said, are you still doing this? He was like, yeah. And that's when I set up the procurement business, supplying medical supplies and pharmaceuticals to these companies. And it proved, again, a gap in the market, because the locally produced stuff or the locally sourced stuff wasn't up to scratch. It was out of date, it was substandard, it was cheap Chinese products and stuff like that. So really, an international oil company will not use that.
Yeah. So you knew that if you could actually bring in a good quality product, then you'd. Yeah. And it's not exactly a saturated market, because it's kind of almost dangerous to be in it, right? Yeah. So, and how long? And So that was a procurement business. So was that a part of Special Logistics or slightly different?
No, completely different businesses. So that was the first business I set up, 2017, and then quickly it started to snowball into a bit of a beast because we'd found the ways to import through into these countries legally.
Illegally or
legally. So because we have the local partner who has the import license, we're able to do it. Whereas a lot of the international companies who were operating there did not have an import license to import these products.
So what type of numbers were you doing at one point then when it started to snowball?
So the first year, we probably did about, I think it was $700,000. Year 2, year 3, I think the most we ever did was 3.2 million in a year.
Wow.
But that wasn't just medical equipment. It started to go into body armour, uniforms, tactical equipment, vehicle spurs, armoured vehicle equipment.
Supplying tanks.
We was getting shopping lists. They was literally saying, right, you clearly can import legally and you're delivering on time. This is what we need. Price it up. If it gets approved, we want it delivered. But the problem was, I didn't have any past performance with these companies, so I had to take all the risk
By
cash, buying up front and only getting paid 30 days after delivery and acceptance. So the risk for me to get into this market, which was very, very locked down because there was only big players into that already, was massive. So yeah, I think we've only ever probably had one bad shipment, which we had to obviously.
How much did that cost you?
Enough.
Go on, then tell us the number.
About $70,000.
Yeah.
But out of 100 shipments, one going wrong.
Yeah, it's good.
And it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the political unrest at the time, and the goods got stole. So we had to replace it and deliver it, but kept the customer happy, and we still have that client today.
Yeah, and did you continue that business or have you closed that now?
No, we still have it now. So that expanded into Afghanistan. So we support a lot of the humanitarian organisations. So we're doing air freights, products and services.
Even to Afghanistan now?
Even as recent as last month, we sent a shipment of dog food, for prescription dog food for the animal sanctuary in Kabul.
Wow.
All the way to Libya, supplying uniforms, medical supplies. Somalia, we supplied the equipment to build a vehicle servicing centre for a private security company. So they service all their armoured vehicles with this. We supply them the parts, the consumables. As long as we're competitive and we can deliver within a set time frame and we take all the risk, as in get paid on delivery, they're happy to say, look, we don't want to put this out to competitive tender because we can use a company we don't know and we can pay them and they may never deliver. So that trust is there now, that trust is instilled. And as long as we continue to perform and deliver within the timelines and never allow it to mess up, then that business would be very difficult to sort of lose, really. The relationships are 5-6 years old.
And how much do you reckon that business is valued at now?
I don't know. I do know, but it's all right. I mean, yeah, it's hard to value a business. There's different valuation models for it.
Yeah.
And what I would expect it to be valued at may be completely different to what an investor or a business purchaser might see. The one business that we're going through valuation at the moment is the logistics one, which is probably more exciting at the moment because of the potential of growth within that.
And how did you... Because logistics, you think about logistics, right, and you've got the typical players in that logistical space, but you seem to be growing at such a rapid rate. So, like, what is it that you know that others don't?
It's a good question, that, really. I think because of the regions and areas that we deliver to, the big carriers can only deliver or fulfill a certain obligation. So, for example, if FedEx or DHL want to deliver a customer shipment door-to-door to Somalia or Libya, they're unable to do that because they don't have that final mile delivery partner to do that. Whereas we have the local partners, the local clearing agents, the reputation, the experience of dealing with the local entities, and I think the big companies are not geared just simply because of the size of them, to offer the level of service and support that the customer expects from us. So having a much more personal relationship with them and giving them that extra level of support has allowed us to build that.
Yeah.
And because of our buying power as an aggregator, we're able to generally give the customer much cheaper rates than they will be able to go direct.
Yeah. Yeah. I did notice that actually, because I remember once when I wanted to send a parcel and I was like, with you, it's like 90 dirhams. With them, it was 360 dirhams. I was like, what?
I mean, the margins are huge, but again, we're making reasonable margins on that as well. So it just shows, if we can give customers that level of service they need, especially for e-commerce businesses, startups, SMEs, where they need, essentially what they're doing is outsourcing the logistics to us. We're using our experience and knowledge to advise them the best way to fulfill their logistic requirements.
What was because starting a business, because I was listening to something the other day and they were saying being a founder and being a CEO is two different things. How did you find being a founder, growing a business and getting it to a point where it's so big, you then became the CEO?
It's tough, really, because when you have, as a founder, you've got this vision and you want to get to that vision and you want to build it into something. But in reality, it's not as plain sailing as that. I'm very good at getting a startup or an idea and converting it into a business to generate profit and get it on its feet. Where I struggle is when the business gets to a certain size and we're dealing with 10, 20 staff or however many staff it is. I'm like, I can't deal with this person's problem. I'm trying to manage this. Somebody's falling out in the office. We're not getting this because somebody doesn't want to talk to another staff member. Somebody's off sick. So what I then quickly realise is I need to hire people, as in like managers, general managers and stuff like that, who have experience and can manage that day-to-day sort of operations, where I can simply focus on the vision, the strategy, the growth of the business, and allow the expertise that I'm hiring in to manage the operations and the processes, and put the processes in place to make sure essentially the business runs like a military operation.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that you've probably learned quite well is obviously the military. They build things to an elite point where the systems and procedures you have in place is very easily replicable into business. I have found over time the hardest part about business at times is managing people.
Definitely.
It's
hard. I can try and do it.
Say it's the hardest part.
Yeah, definitely, because and my wife's such a massive sort of influence on how I am in business. Like, she's so good at giving me advice in how to do it, because she come from a corporate background. So I'm always, when I face a problem, I'm like, what do I do in this situation? And she's clear, she's precise, she knows how to do it. And but she'll always say, have you thought about doing it this way and stuff like that? So having that support, knowledge, expertise to support me allowed me to be a better boss, better CEO of the business.
Did you find as well, being a solo founder, that it was quite hard at the beginning because it's just you and your thoughts, right? It's like sometimes, did you ever feel like, oh, am I making the right decision? And then that hampered the decisions that you needed to make.
Definitely. But I think inside me, I'm an inherent risk taker. That is a big thing. So I would rather go for something if as long as I'm wholeheartedly believe it will work, like my self-belief that it will work, I will take that risk. If it fails, I'll start again from scratch. Do you know what I mean? If the business closes down tomorrow, I'll find another business and start that up. You got
the blueprint now.
I think so. I think I've had other business ideas. I focused on that for a bit, and then after a week, I've thought, don't be so stupid. Just put it away. But other business ideas, even because I'm so busy with existing commitments, I'll tell friends. I say, look, there's a gap there. Get in that, or I've got a lot of friends now who are looking to get into their own businesses. So being able to give them some advice from my personal experiences, may not always be right or the correct way, but at least it's giving them confidence in knowing that they've got friends within, who have some experience in it, and it gives them a little bit more confidence, because that was my biggest fear with the gym. All my life savings were on that. And I was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to risk everything now to potentially have nothing?
Yeah.
And whereas a lot of people, even older than me now. They had business ideas, really good business ideas, but they never pulled the trigger on it. They never went for it. So I think, that is part of the problem in why a lot of people don't make that step, is through fear, or fear of failure, or fear of losing money. But I think that if you don't give it a go, you're never going to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So building a successful business is obviously not the goal now, because you've built successful businesses. Money's not the goal because you have money. So what is now kind of like the goal for you in terms of like the next stage of your life?
It's a tricky one, really, because I think I want to keep myself busy, but obviously with Hunter, the boy, and another baby on the way, Kiana, I think I need to potentially take a step back, because what I don't want to do is be tied up with business when I should really be spending time with the children, especially from such a young age now, because Hunter's 14 months. Every day I come back, he's getting bigger and bigger and growing and developing and stuff like that. And I don't want to miss out on these important sort of events in his life. But I still want to be busy with the businesses. I'll probably sell one of them at some point. I don't know which one yet. I've got an idea which one. Or bring in people to manage it. And again, another sort of tough part of that is trust. Had a few trust issues over the years with previous staff and so on. But I think now I've definitely got the right team on board who I can completely trust to support the businesses.
Well, that's another thing about business, right? The hard part is that people are always trying to stab you in the back. So have you obviously had people trying to stab you in the back with the gym. So has there been moments where people have tried to stab you in the back with the procurement and logistics business?
Not so much the procurement. The logistics business, absolutely. Because it's such a big industry and quite lucrative in terms of the accounts that you can bring on board to support. There's some businesses spending millions of dollars a year on logistics alone. So having them accounts on board are extremely attractive. I appreciate people move jobs and leave the industry and move up and set up on their own and stuff like that. But we've had problems in the past with a previous employer who literally took the blueprint for the business, the vendors list and the clients list, and then tried to set up on his own and then start approaching our customers. But it's not going to end well.
And how do you deal with situations like that? Because not only do you have the emotional side, you have the professional side. So how do you juggle dealing with the emotions, but then making sure that it ends professionally?
The emotion side is tough, because you bring somebody into your family, you into your house, with good friends. You lend him money because he fell on hard times. You've done favours for him and stuff like that. And really, he's been plotting this all this time. Quite and I was told, obviously Ned is a very good judge of character. She went, just be careful with him from the beginning, and she went, just be careful. And then this is what's happened now. So I'll always sort of take on board her advice more.
What did she say about me?
Good lad. No,
thanks, Neda.
But it's like that. I mean, business is cutthroat. People see the success, or however they portray it, and they think, well, I can do that, or I want some of that, but they don't see the years of sort of work that's gone into to get it to this stage, or the sacrifices, or the commitments, or a little bit of luck as well. There's a little bit of luck involved. So I wish him the best of luck, but fortunately for here in the UAE, we have really, really good laws that protect business owners from and breach of NDAs and trade secrets.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much we can do apart from go legal, but we'll let the lawyers deal with that.
Nice. Well, listen, Jonny, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us. I've enjoyed it. Obviously, it's nice because when you talk about these military stories as well, it's unbeknown to a lot of people. So to really get into that, but then also as well, like I said to you this too on the phone, but like for you to be able to be on the positive side of leaving the military is phenomenal, because I've interviewed so many people from the military, and some people are suffering to this day with wanting to commit suicide and struggle mentally. And then there's others that have like a rare few that have actually gone on and done well for themselves. And obviously you seem to have mastered that formula. But also what I think is really good and is very valuable for the listeners is the fact that you haven't reinvented the wheel. You have just literally gone, how can I add value to my customers?
Yeah.
Whether it's training in the gym, needing medical supplies, sending products to different countries. Like, it's like, how can I make it like very customer centric, having great, and I think people need to take, like, people try and think too much into business these days. And what do I need when really there's a lot of business out there that just don't take care of their customers. Yeah. So if you can take care of your customers and actually build a business that actually focus on being good quality for that, whatever you do, I think you can inevitably go on to be successful because then people trust you.
Definitely. And I think even just find a business that what you're passionate about or you're involved in, find it and do one better. Just find out what you need to do to make your business better than the next successful one. Yeah. And you have all these ideas that come in and then you just got to put it into action.
Yeah. But I think you should start doing more podcasts because you've got a lot of wisdom to share.
You've only scratched the surface today.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe we can do another part 2 and I'll start digging for more answers.
Okay, all right. You got a few out me today.
Yeah. I could see you were resisting a little bit. But listen, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I sit here and I listen in fascination to be able to have these conversations with people every single week. So if you've enjoyed the conversation just as much as we have, make sure you hit that subscribe button or follow whichever channel you're listening on. You can check the full episode out on YouTube. We've got a nice little camera setup going on here, or you can listen in audio on the go as well. So thanks again, and I'll see you next week.